This is the Marshall Woburn III Bluetooth home speaker, and I just wanted to share my experience with this in case anyone else is considering it. I've been using it as a main speaker at home for music, TV audio, and sometimes with a record player. It is not a small speaker, and it is not something I would move from room to room all the time. It needs to be plugged into the wall, and it has some weight to it. Once I found a spot for it, I mostly left it there. The look is probably one of the reasons people notice this speaker. It has that classic Marshall amp style with the cloth grille, the logo on the front, and the knobs on top. I like that the controls are real physical controls. The volume, bass, and treble knobs feel nice to use, and I use them more than I expected. I don't always want to open an app just to lower the bass a little. Setup was simple for me. Bluetooth pairing was quick, and I did not have to mess with much. I connected my phone, played music, and it worked right away. The Marshall app is useful, but I don't feel like I need it every day. I mainly used it for placement settings and night mode when using the speaker with my TV. The sound is the main reason I kept using it. It gets loud enough for a large living room without feeling like it is struggling. I usually do not listen at full volume because it is more than I need. At normal listening levels, the bass has real weight. You can feel it a bit on bass-heavy tracks, even when the volume is not very high. I noticed the bass is strong by default. That can be good or bad depending on your room. In my space, when I placed it closer to a wall, the bass got a little too thick. The placement setting in the app helped with that. I also turned the bass knob down a bit for some songs. After doing that, vocals and guitars felt clearer. The mids are good for the kind of music I usually play. Rock, acoustic tracks, older soul records, and live recordings all sound full. Voices come through nicely once the bass is under control. I do think this speaker has a warm sound, so if you like a very sharp or super clean studio monitor style sound, this may not be what you want. The treble is mostly fine for me, but it can get a little sharp when the volume is pushed high. I noticed it more with bright tracks, cymbals, and some female vocals. It is not a deal breaker for how I use it, because I rarely run it near max volume. But if you plan to play it very loud all the time, that is something to know. One thing I liked more than I expected is how wide it sounds for a single speaker. It does not replace two separate speakers placed far apart, but it does spread sound better than a lot of one-piece speakers I've used. I can walk around the room and it still sounds pretty even. It does not feel like all the sound is trapped in one small spot. I tried it with Bluetooth most of the time and it has been stable for music. I did not have many dropouts from my phone. But the Bluetooth codec support is basic. If you care a lot about higher quality wireless audio formats, that may bother you. I noticed the speaker itself seems capable of more detail than Bluetooth always gives it. When I used wired inputs, it felt a bit cleaner. The input options are one of the practical parts one really like. There is Bluetooth, a 3.5mm AUX input, RCA, and HDMI ARC. The RCA input is nice if you want to use it with a turntable, but just remember that your record player needs a built-in phono preamp, or you need a separate one. You cannot always plug in any turntable and expect it to work correctly. Using it with a record player has been one of my favorite uses. It fits that setup well because it sounds full and relaxed. I like that I can keep a turntable connected through RCA and still use Bluetooth from my phone when I'm just playing something quickly. The HDMI ARC input is also useful. I connected it to my TV, and it made movies and shows sound much bigger than the TV speakers. It is not a full surround setup, and it does not replace a proper soundbar with a sub if that is what you want. But for a single speaker, it is a simple way to improve TV sound without adding a lot of boxes. I did notice one issue with TV use. Sometimes background music or effects can sit too high compared to dialogue. I used night mode in the app when watching at night, and that helped make voices easier to follow. I still would not call this the ideal speaker if dialogue clarity is your only priority. A soundbar made for TV might be easier for that. Compared to smaller Bluetooth speakers I've owned, this feels much more like a home speaker. The bass goes lower, the sound feels larger, and it does not sound thin in a bigger room. Compared to smart speakers like a Sonos or HomePod, it is less connected. There is no built-in Wi-Fi streaming or voice assistant here. I did miss that a little at times. That was one of my concerns before using it. I wondered if Bluetooth-only wireless use would feel limiting. For me, it has been okay because I mostly use my phone, turntable, or TV. But if you want multi-room audio, built-in streaming apps, or voice control, this is probably not the right choice. Another thing to keep in mind is size. This is not a desk speaker for a tiny workspace unless you really want a big speaker sitting there. It makes more sense in a living room, bedroom, studio room, or a spot where it can stay plugged in. It is also heavy enough that I would not want to move it every day. I also had one odd moment early on where the sound felt muddy out of the box. I reset it by holding the source and play/pause buttons, and after that it sounded much clearer. I do not know if everyone will run into that, but it is worth trying if the speaker sounds strangely muffled when you set it up. The build feels solid to me. The top controls feel good, the cabinet feels sturdy, and it does not rattle in normal use. The back panel is not as clean looking as the front, with labels and ports all grouped there, but that is not something I see much once it is placed against a wall. This is good for someone who wants one strong home speaker for music and casual TV use. It is also good if you like physical controls and wired inputs. It makes sense if you have a turntable, a TV, and a phone, and you want one speaker to handle all of that in one place. I would not recommend it if you need a portable speaker, smart speaker features, or the most detailed wireless audio setup. I also would not pick it only for TV dialogue. It can do TV audio and it can sound good, but that is not the same as a dedicated TV sound system. For my use, I've enjoyed it. It sounds full, it is easy to live with, and I like having real knobs for quick adjustments. It has some limits, especially with Bluetooth audio quality and no Wi-Fi features, but it still works well as a simple home speaker. If you are thinking about getting it, I would mainly ask yourself where you will put it and how you plan to use it. If it is going into a larger room and you want strong music playback with a few useful wired inputs, it makes sense. If you want something small, portable, or smart home focused, I would look at other options. If you have any questions about how I've been using it, leave them in the comments and I'll try to answer based on my own experience. Please check the comment section for detailed information about the Marshall Woburn III Bluetooth home speaker. Thank you for watching.